Joe Siracusa. He is an author and professor of security and diplomacy at Curtin University and joins me now live from Melbourne. Professor, what is Lavrov likely to achieve on this trip?
Well, a great deal, Rachel, and good afternoon. Look, he's playing the Africa card. The Arab League will receive him for a talk. It's 22 countries. He renews ties with Egypt. Remember now that Egypt was and the Soviet Union were in each other's hip pockets for a long, long time during the Cold War. So he's got contacts there. And keep in mind also that Africa has parts of Africa he's going to have 30% of the world's mineral ore reserves. I mean, it's a very rich place. It's untapped, and he knows exactly what he's doing. You said in your package there that Russia is fairly much isolated. Well, actually, these kinds of trips make Russia less isolated. They are going about business as usual. President Putin was in Iran. This guy's in Africa. He'll be speaking to, I think, Nigeria and Ethiopia, very large countries, and then he's also going to work with the Democratic Congo. So he's moving around. He's going about business. This is important for him, and of course, Russia's big rival in Africa is not the United States, which has always dropped the ball there, but China, which has got very large investments all over the place. So Lavrov and the Russians are looking towards the future. I think it's a pretty good move. The American response to this right now has been pretty weak. The Defense Department said, we don't care who he meets. We only care about what he says, which, of course, is nonsense. It's another way of saying that we can't do a thing about it.
So how open are these countries then to strengthening relations with Russia? And who would likely be Russia's biggest allies in Africa?
Well, I think Egypt has a great stake in balancing its ties between America or Washington and Moscow. Doesn't want to be caught in the Cold War trap where you had to choose one or the other. For a long time, it chose Russia and was able to throw off its colonial yoke and the rest of it. So I think Egypt would be first, and then Nigeria and Ethiopia, which has been handled very roughly by the United States and the United Nations, would be looking to Russia. Keep in mind that Russia will provide these countries with business models and with investments, like the nuclear reactor going up in Egypt, and they're not going to give many lectures. There'll be no discussion about the rules-based order of things. When you deal with the Russians, you get investments or whatever it is. They're not going to lecture them about what to do next. And I think these people have been chastened by 50 years of Cold War where you had to choose one or the other. I mean, African nations were very prominent in the Third World movement, that is the neutral, and I think they'd like to be equidistant between all the troubles. And of course, their big concern right now is food and energy. So they're looking to Russia to make sure this the food flows again, the grains from Russia and from Ukraine. So that would be number one on their mind. But aside from that, I think Lavrov is doing a pretty good job there, and the West really has no response. And of course, the reason that 2 or 3/5 of the world is not lining up behind the United States and Europe on Ukraine is through the efforts of Lavrov and the Chinese to keep this neutrality or this equal distance. Let's call it disinterested response from these nations. They're concerned, of course, about life and all that, but they have their own nations to guide along the way, and Russia's always been a very useful tool, and they will use Russia as much as Russia will use them.
You talked about how the West and America in particular has dropped the ball in Africa. Is there anything these countries have to lose by strengthening ties with Russia? I mean, with China's heavy influence on the continent, is that likely to cause any kind of strain?
It might down the road, particularly as people start looking for gold and platinum and chromium and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there are huge reserves there, and some of them are located in certain countries. There might be economic competition for that, but Lavrov and the Russians are looking towards the future, economic and diplomatic relations, and they're looking for friends in a multipolar world. They see the world as getting bigger and having more players, and as I say, the Africans don't want to be trapped between the East and West again. That didn't work out very well for anybody as far as they're concerned. So, yeah, I think, and it's also a very good indication to me that Russia is worried about China down the road. It's when it develops these kinds of relations, it's thinking about its competition. And so sooner or later, people, nations turn to Africa because it is the last great unexplored place to make money and friends.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Joe Siracusa joining us from Melbourne. Thanks, Professor.